What's up? It's Matt. We're back. We're live. We're on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. We're on YouTube. And yes, we're on Twitter, thanks to my dad who pointed out I need to be on Twitter more. But today, I'm with my very own rock star. Now, not the guy with a guitar, I don't think, but I'm with Roger Beaudoin of Restaurant Rockstars. What's going on?
Hey, what's happening, Matt? Thanks for having me on the show. This is a lot of fun.
You're welcome. So I came across you, I don't know how, a few months ago. I was on your podcast about a month ago, and I got poking around all of your stuff online. Yeah, that's what I love about the internet. We can stalk each other and not know.
That's right.
And a lot of what you do got my attention because I was fortunate in my background with the restaurant world. I'm not a restaurant guy. Like people ask, oh, do you work in restaurants? Is that why you deal with them? I'm like, no, I never have worked in a restaurant. Kind of have. Early in my agency career, I picked up a client that had a lot of restaurants. And part of me working with them, I was involved in everything. I was involved in meetings on menus, structure, meetings on profit and loss, meeting on building their new Stein Club and the different, the Columbus or Pittsburgh location. It was a brand called Hofbrauhaus House. But I got to see a lot of stuff. And a lot of what they talked about, because they were a very well-run brand. A guy named Jim Combs of Paragon Restaurant Group runs the restaurants. And a lot of what he talked about, I saw on your website. And we'll go to that later and check it out.
Yeah, okay.
And it got my attention. And I guess I know there's three big things that you do. I know you deal a lot with staff. You deal a lot with menu structure. And then one thing I wrote down also, because I put a note next to it, you deal with the cost analyzation. And so I want to start with the cost analyzation part of it because we're coming out of COVID-19. This is shot May 27th live. So if you see it in the future, it's still going to be relevant because a lot of what people needed to be doing before COVID-19 hit probably glared its ugly face during COVID. And I'll put it on myself. I had one software that we've been using for a while, and we use it for hundreds of clients. That when March came around, I said, okay, we're going to lose some revenue March, April, and May. We're not going to gain as many clients we normally do. How do we get a little smoother? How do we get a little more, what is what I'm looking for, profitable? And we had a software that we use on a daily basis, hundreds of times a day, that we saved about $3,000 a month just by looking at it and analyzing it better. And I think a lot of companies were forced to do that. And restaurants coming out of COVID-19 are going to have to reinvent themselves. Talk about cost controls because that's a killer in the restaurant business, right?
Well, you're talking about having systems in place. And I've been coaching and consulting restaurants now for 6 or 7 years. And you would be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't be surprised at how many restaurants out there just don't know their critical numbers. They don't take regular inventory. When you say that word to them, it's all about, oh, I need to walk around and see what I need to order this week, as opposed to, yeah, the value of the goods on hand at any given time is X. And when I do this on a weekly basis and I know I'm staying within my sweet spot or what I'm comfortable my food cost should be, I know I don't have a waste, a theft, or a spoilage program, then I can go to a 30-day inventory and, but the process has to happen. And so many restaurants don't take that inventory. They don't know what their prime costs are. And obviously prime costs are the sum total of food, beverage, and labor costs, the biggest expenses you have in your restaurant. Yeah. So you mentioned COVID because a lot of restaurants didn't have these systems in place pre-COVID. And some of them are doing just fine, but let's face it, this is a low margin business. I'm proud to say that when I ran restaurants and I had 4 high volume places, I had a 21% net profit margin, but that's more than double the average in this industry. And there's a lot of businesses, running restaurants right now in the 6 to 8% range. There's a lot on the verge of disaster. And then COVID hits. And now it's like, okay, we're either closed right now, waiting to reopen based on governor's orders, or we've pivoted to the takeout curbside delivery model and that sort of thing. But either way, we've got limited service. We're probably spending less time than we were when it was full tilt boogie. Now is the time to put these systems in place so you can come out the other side, not just survive this thing, but really be profitable. So we focus on teaching people the fundamentals of cost controls, the inventory process, calculating your prime costs. One of the biggest ones we didn't even talk about is the daily break even. And if you have pivoted, Does it make sense to be open with the curbside pickup and to-go model 7 days a week? Does it make sense to be open 4 days a week or 5 days a week? You wouldn't know that unless you knew what it costs you to open your doors and what your break even is every single day you're open. And we teach people that, but so few restaurants are doing that. So yeah, I mean, I just got to say, it's all about the systems, and the cost control profit piece is the biggest one. And it's something you can do right now to be stronger later.
Yeah, inventory. Before my restaurant work, before my agency world, we had a boat and RV dealership that we owned. And I'll never forget this conversation because we were doing 15 million a year in sales, of which 14 million was sales, was big ticket. And we were also had a department that sold about $1 million a year in tackle, boat, accessories, parts. It wasn't a big focus of ours. Well, one year I realized it needed to be a better focus. And so I hired a company to come in and do inventory. And I'll never forget it because the tackle department at that time was doing about 150 grand a year in sales. And it had been around for about 3 years. And it was just minted as like the milk of our place. You know, you come in, you see a shiny $50,000 boat, and you leave with a boat and your fishing lure. And I'll never forget, I'm talking to the manager one day. We had this company come in, we looked at the inventory, and he had, let's see, what was it? We had 125,000 in inventory. And we should have been turning things 4 to 6 times a year. And we only did 150 grand in sales. And I'm like, Gary, based on what you have in inventory, we should be doing double what we have. So you've got enough stuff that's going to sit here. It's just cash sitting here. Now, I know restaurants don't necessarily have that issue, or can they? Can they end up with stuff in their dry stores that they don't necessarily need or just sits there and takes money out?
Well, you know, we're talking about two things that I'd like to hit concurrently. So yes, one of the fundamentals on any restaurant philosophy or operating policy should be cross-utilization of merchandise. If you're bringing in items just for one menu item, like let's just say, you know, you're doing lobster and you're only selling it one way instead of 10 ways on that menu, half the time you're going to be throwing that out because it's a highly perishable product. You know, cross-utilization is bringing in items that you can use across the menu in multiple dishes, so you're constantly moving that inventory. That's the first piece. But then you made a great point about the accessories, because in a dealership like what you had, I understand that in a lot of retail situations like that, merchandise and accessories is high margin stuff. Yeah. So if you can figure out a way of training your staff to move that merchandise, and, you know, as part of the upsell, suggestive sell, whatever it is, the same thing happens in restaurants. And my biggest pet peeve, pre-COVID, I traveled the country a lot because I do speaking gigs and I coach restaurants and I do all that kind of stuff. So I eat out a lot on the road, you know, and it doesn't matter the price point of the place. I can tell you, or the city, it could be a food city like San Francisco. It could be a place like Kansas. It don't matter. It's like 9 times out of 10, I get the order taker who's never been trained to suggestive sell. You know, they might be friendly and personable, and they got the pad and pen in hand, or they commit it to memory, and they take the order, deliver the food, and bring the check. And to me, that is such an ordinary experience where they could be bringing the experience and the food and drink to life and making suggestions they know the customer will enjoy and appreciate, and doubling the check average and moving the merchandise. That's what the restaurant is all about. I mean, that's how you make money in the restaurant business. So we specialize in that too. We train people how to sell and how to serve, and the two go together. And I would argue that that is superior service, you know? Suggestive selling is superior service. Order takers are leaving thousands and thousands of dollars a month on the table. And let's face it, as a restaurant owner, you're sticking your neck out. You're taking the risk, the risk of business. You're paying the mortgage, the rent, the utilities, the property tax, the cost of goods, the insurance, the license. You know, I go on and on about that. And what do? They hire people and they give them an immediate opportunity to make money on the floor of a restaurant without training them, turning them loose and just letting the chips fall where they may, as opposed to training these people to sell, be ambassadors for your business, and to move the merchandise and give people a better experience in the whole process. That's what we focus on. That's what made me successful, and that's one of the reasons why we had a 21% net profit margin. We moved the merchandise and we sold, and we created affinity with our customers, where the customers would come in and ask for our staff by name because of that relationship. You know, my staff built relationships with their customers, and they were asked for by name. And that's the magic in the business. I call that capturing lightning in a bottle. You know, when customers, I should say, when the staff are having more fun and making more money, the customers are having more fun and spending more money. And that's a beautiful thing.
The experience too.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
A lot of restaurants, I mean, there's certain items that, like, I talked to a guy that I interviewed for another reason a couple years ago, and he said, Matt, this is how the burger comes, because that's how it should come. But if you're a bacon and a jalapeno lover, like me, I love spicy stuff. He's like, if you don't get the burger with this, you might not come back. And if my server doesn't tell you, hey, what do you love on burgers? Oh, I love this. Okay, great. You want to get these 5 items. I call this the Tanya. Go ahead and get this. Now that person's going to leave a positive review. They're going to probably take a picture of themselves with ketchup on their face. They're going to be back 5 or 6 times. My dad. So you're doing your customer injustice. My dad,
correct.
You said cracked me up because it took me back to a story of my dad at the boat dealership. My dad's the consummate salesperson, but he's also the consummate listener, and he understands what goes with a purchase. So I'll never forget, we had our boat dealership, and he had this rule. You were not allowed to point. That if he caught you pointing, you didn't want to see where your finger was. And it was because he hated going to Walmart and going, hey, I'm looking for the garden hose. Where's that? Oh, it's aisle 39. And they point. Well, his conversation was eliminate the point. Take them to the item. On the way, have small talk. When you get there, find out why they're buying it, because there might be something different. I'll never forget it, because this one day this guy comes in, and my dad happened to be at the front, and the kid pointed. And my dad looked at him and said, seriously? He goes, what are you looking for, son? He goes, I'm looking for an adapter for my my motorhome. I just bought a motorhome. I need the adapter that plugs into the wall at the campground. So my dad goes, okay, come with me. My dad walks over, gets to talking to him, finds out the guy's a NASCAR fan. He goes, who's your favorite racer? Dale Earnhardt. We just got Dale Earnhardt awning lights in. You're kidding me. Walks him over, $100 awning lights. A couple minutes later, the guy talking about he's a brand new motorhomer. He's like, hey, what do you have for your sewage disposal? There's a way that you got all the sewage by your camper. They had this new see-through one that came in that had a real easy cleaning option. My dad showed the guy. He's like, oh, my gosh, I got to have it. Long story short, the guy came in for a $3 adapter and left with $500 worth of stuff. And some people might say, oh, that's bad. He overspent. The guy came back the next week and thanked my dad like you wouldn't believe. Oh, my gosh, that made it so much easy. Everybody at the campground was raving over my lights. And it made his experience better because, like you said, he gave a better environment in the inside the business.
Absolutely agree. That's what it's all about right there. And again, I mean, your dad and you guys, the way you ran that business, I mean, that's what I call building affinity with the customer, giving them lots of reasons to love you and tell everybody they know that you're the bomb, and social media and online reviews and all that kind of stuff. I mean, if you treat these people like they're the most important customer, even if you got 300 customers in your restaurant and you call them by name and you get to know them and, hey, how, it's your wife's birthday next week. Tell her I wish her a happy, whatever it is. It's like, yeah, you know how it is. So, we had a mug club in our restaurant, and it started. I mean, mug clubs are huge, right? I mean, we've all been to sports bars and these bars that have mugs hanging from the ceiling, and some people just put them up there, and they serve beer in it. But you can make a real profit center out of a mug club, where we started with 100 mugs, and then we grew it to 200, and then 400, and then 600. When I sold that restaurant 5 years ago, we had 1,200 people that belonged to the mug club. I mean, there were a sea of mugs hanging over the bar, behind the shelves, everywhere. And it became this thing where everybody wanted to be part of that club. And they paid us $50 every single year just to belong to this club. And it was a seasonal business. So literally they could drink 4 months a year out of this thing. And they pay you $50, and that was almost 50,000, 50 grand in cash flow. And it was free and clear because it was sponsored. I brought in sponsors that put their logo on the mugs, and, we thanked them every once in a while on the microphone. We gave live prizes away and promotions and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's nice to have 50 grand. What restaurant couldn't use an extra 50 grand? You could pay a manager for that, or you could do capital improvements, but that's not the kicker. The kicker is how much money these people are spending, because instead of coming in twice a week, twice a month, or, every 2 or 3 weeks, they're in there 3-4 days a week drinking out of their mug. It's their clubhouse. You treat them like value added, treat them like the most important. It blows me away to this day, Matt, to tell you that my bartenders got to know a majority of these people. And as soon as somebody walked through the door, if they were a mug club member, we knew exactly what their beer of choice was. The bartenders would ring a bell whenever someone was recognized. The beer would be poured. And if there was a crowd, that beer would get poured through a sea of mug club members and get to that person before they got within 50 feet of the bar. And that was personalized service. And they knew everybody by name and everything about them. And, these people, that's the affinity piece. That's powerful stuff.
Yeah, the brand, you've heard of Hofbrauhaus, I'm guessing, out of Munich.
Yes, I've been to the Hofbrauhaus in Munich.
Yeah. So we handled the marketing for Newport, which is near Cincinnati, where I'm at now, Pittsburgh, Columbus. and then also Cleveland for a while. And it was wild. We analyzed through the Aloha point. They had Aloha as their point of sale.
I use that as well.
Analyzed the point of sale for the people that were loyalty members. It was $125 a year for them for the Stein Club. $125. They got a locker, they got a lock, they got a Stein, they got a discount every time they came in. Right. And we found through a sample of 2 of the locations that a Stein Club member spent $2,200 extra per year just on beer. And that's just extra on top of everything else. Like we assumed the food was there, the visits. And when you take that times 300 people, somebody like, oh, it's not a big deal. Well, you know what? A couple $1,000 times 300 people, that's the owner's bonus. That's the owner's salary, extra money. So it does well. I want to go back to something you mentioned because I actually had witnessed this firsthand. And it comes down to menu construction and it comes down to waste. And like you mentioned, I'm in a meeting. I go back to the same guy, Jim Combs, who I have a lot of experience dealing with. And Jim's he had 3 Quaker Steak and Lube franchises. And they had just rolled out these really cool milkshakes. And they had like the milkshake that they said, hey, here's what they're going to be. And then here's the items you need for each milkshake. And here's the quantities we want each of your stores to take. And I happened to be there when the person from corporate came in and he's like, no. We're not taking that per store. We'll take that total. I'll divide it among our stores. Well, why? He's like, because that little piece of candy is only going to be used on that one milkshake ever. And we might sell 5 of those a week. And if we sell 5 a week times the next 3 to 4 months, the shelf life of that candy, and I buy what you want me to buy, I'm going to have candy for 5 years here that we never use. And it was the same thing. It was it was an item. He said, like Matt, that he was telling me is the problem with these milkshakes is they require so many items. Like every one of them had like 5 or 6 gimmicks to it that were one use. And that one use crushes it. Whereas like Game Works is a place in Cincinnati here in Northern Kentucky. They have a handful of locations. They have some really cool milkshakes, but they're utilizing easy items. And then like their Bavarian pretzel you can get here, you can get it in a milkshake. So there's other ways to use it. So I'm guessing you talk a lot about that in your course that you have online, right?
Yeah, and I'm a big believer in cash cows too. And these are things, whether it's a drink, like a specialty cocktail. Well, let's start there. So we had these drinks, right? We were at a winter ski resort, and we created these things we call glacier bowls. It was like a giant fish bowl with a stem, and it would literally hold 60 ounces of liquid if you poured it in, but you pack it with ice, and you literally put in, it was like rums, or it was vodka-based or whatever with a variety of mixers in it. And then it would always have like blue curacao or grenadine that would make the drink look like antifreeze or something, so it was a hook, right? Yeah. And then we took those, like, you seen those glow sticks that the kids crack open at parades and stuff. Well, you put one of those in there, and now the drink glows from the inside out. And now those things go through the dining room, and they sell themselves at $20 a piece. That's a cash cow. It costs you very little to serve something you're charging $20 for that sells itself. It's got what I call wow factor, or perceived value by the customer. And you can't have too many cash cows in your restaurant, whether it's a food item or whatnot. So, that's some of the other marketing we did. We had cash cow food items where we created these lottery tickets, like, because lottery fever, like so many people are you go to a grocery store, convenience store, and there's always somebody in front of you buying these tickets, right? And you pull out the quarter and you're scratching off the little squares or circles. I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool if we could have a custom branded lottery ticket for our restaurant that had our logo on it? It looked like a lottery ticket, but it had our logo, and it was custom branded with a catchy name. And every single ticket was a winner, and you'd have to pull out a quarter and scratch it off. And what would you win? You'd win one of 10 of our cash cows that probably cost me 30 cents to give to the customer. But we put them in the check presenters after people paid the check that would get them back in again. And I tracked this for years that we did it just to build our business. And the average spend was about 75 or $80 for the cost of the, 30-cent appetizer or whatever it was. That was, ingenious idea. And it was a catchy hook. I love hooks. Can't have too many hooks in your restaurant. So whether it's a milkshake or it's a glacier bowl drink or it's a cash cow food item, it's like, hooks are important, because I believe the restaurant business is showbiz. It's all about entertainment, and you got to dazzle and wow your customer, because you got to beat the competition, and you got to know that everything you do is about creativity and resourcefulness and being like what I call the guerrilla marketer, and coming up with stuff that no one expects to see, that captures their imagination. And then suddenly the camera phones are coming out and they're snapping pictures of this and that and the next thing. And you're giving them that wow factor, whatever it is. And now you're giving them a reason to share that on social media, to talk about what it was, to tell everybody to know, hey, you got to go to that place because they did this. We also had these birthday candles. Everybody has birthdays in restaurants from time to time, and they'll buy a dessert or they'll order a cake in advance or whatever it is. Okay, that's the given part, right? What's the sizzle on top of that birthday cake? So you can go online and you can find, they're like Roman candles. They're about 5 inches tall, and you light the end of it, and it sits in like a golf tee that sits on top of the dessert, and it shoots this shower of sparks like 3 feet off the table. And this is a birthday hook, right? So every time there was a birthday, we sold these things for $5 a piece. You can buy them in bulk for like, 35 cents each, and we used to, that's another cash cow, right? But we sold them, and it was a hook, and every time there was a birthday, it would stop the room, right? Because the staff is walking through, and here's this thing showering sparks about, and they're perfectly safe. I don't want to give anyone the impression that it's a dangerous thing. They're legal, they're safe, but it's a wow factor thing. And as soon as the staff sings the birthday song and the candle's still sparking, and then as soon as the candle runs out of powder inside and it stops, the entire room used to erupt in applause. Like everybody in the place would be like, like you're at a football game or something. We used to do all the kinds of crazy stuff like this, and that's a hook. It's just fun,
So help me with this then, because I've seen what you're talking. I've seen what you're talking about. I've seen restaurants that do things like that have a hook, that do exciting things. I've seen restaurants do the mystery chair, where when you get seated that night and underneath your chair is an envelope and there's $100 bill in it. I've seen people do stuff.
Okay.
The problem is I don't see very many do it. Why aren't restaurant owners doing these lottery tickets, these crazy candles? Are they just too busy working in their business and not analyzing and realizing what's going to help them be different?
I think you've hit the nail on the head right there. I call this business the restaurant of 1,000 details. And even if you get 990 of those details correct, it's the 10 you miss that the customer always sees. So managers or owners are reactive. They're not proactive. They're just trying to put out good food. They're just trying to get good online reviews. They're just trying to do the basics of their business and get through. It's like survival. They can't see around corners. They don't know what's going to happen next. But it's like putting out the daily fires versus thinking, what can I strategically do that's going to capture the attention of a customer? Because I know you're a big believer in the lifetime value of a customer. Yep. And it's so much more than just giving them food and drink. I think of it this way. It's like customers don't just go out to restaurants because they're hungry or because they want food and drink. They're looking for an experience. They may not be thinking they're looking for one, but if you're an owner or manager, you better damn well deliver an experience, or else you're just a commodity that they can get anywhere, no matter how good your food is. So yeah, I'm a big believer in hooks and dazzle and flash and sizzle. But I don't want to mislead anyone either, because it's got to fit the theme of your place. I can't see these 5-star fine dining, stuffy shirt restaurants having the birthday candles and the lottery tickets. No, it wouldn't work. But you got to come up with your own hooks that are super targeted to who your customer is. You got to know who your customer is.
Yeah.
But for us, we were a family casual place. It was all about, we called it the 3-ring circus because, we served lunch, we served dinner, we had a huge bar business in the afternoon, and then we did rock bands 3 nights a week. So it was like,
Did you ever do the money bag? You ever done a money bag promotion?
We had a telephone booth with a fan in it.
Yep.
And do you remember those things?
Yep.
That was fun too. It's like in the bar, we'd have these promotions all the time, and you'd load it with dollar bills and stuff, and there'd be like 100 singles flying around, and somebody goes in there for a minute, and they can grab as much as they can, and they stuff it in their shirt and all that kind of stuff, and it's just a hook. But people spend money when stuff is going on, and they stay longer. And the musician thing and the acoustic guitar thing and the mug club thing. You were talking earlier about the Aloha system, because we had that back in the day. And the value of a spend of a customer, you can track the top spender. We had these loyalty cards, we called it the kickback card. It was just a mag stripe card that had our logo on. It was custom branded to us, and every Mug Club member got one of these. And whenever they came into the restaurant, if they sat at a table and ate dinner, if they just went up to the bar and had a beer, you'd hand the card to your server, your bartender, and they'd swipe it through the system, and this thing would track spending. and we would award prizes for the top spender. We used to award these custom, beautiful, handcrafted artisan bar stools, heavy oak top, steel legs and stuff. And we would have an artist come in with a wood burning pen, and he would literally put their name and their mug number on this thing. And They would get awarded this custom bar stool for being the top, just stuff like that.
Pretty awesome.
And we could program that POS system to randomly award prizes. So you might give the bartender your mag card, and it might be the 5th time you're in that week, but automatically, hey, guess what? You just won a free pizza. Hey, you just won a free T-shirt. You just won this, that, and the next thing. And we used to collect so much valuable merchandise from all our suppliers because we spent such good money with these suppliers and we were loyal to them year after year. They used to drop a truckload of stuff off, like electronics and wearables and neon bar signs. And we filled 2 closets in my restaurant with all this stuff. And we'd do 2 things with it. We'd award it to the staff for making a difference, going above and beyond and doing an amazing job or whatever it was. We'd recognize people twice a week doing that. And then the other prizes we'd award to our Mug Club members for just being Mug Club members. So that was creating lifetime value of a customer. And these people were loyal for 20 years, and and they would fight for the lowest numbers. For whatever reason, you had to have a number between 1 and 20. And that was this prestigious thing when there's 1,200 mugs in the place and you were less than 20 on the scale. People would try to buy these mugs for, every year and say, I'll give you $500 to have number 5. It was crazy. People used to we didn't take reservations. We were first come, first serve, because I thought there's nothing more inefficient in a busy restaurant than taking reservations and you're waiting for people to come in and sit at the table. And they're late half the time. They're 5 minutes late. They're 10 minutes late. And then 2 people trickle in and you're holding that table. No, you got to turn those tables around. So people used to try to buy our tables on a Saturday night at 7 o'clock. I'll give you $500 if you give us a guaranteed reservation at 7. It was crazy. But we never took the money, we never compromised that policy because it created demand and it created buzz, and, there's marketing value in that.
Yeah. And I think too many businesses are just too ordinary. I made a comment back when COVID-19 hit. It was about 3 weeks into it. And I saw a friend of mine post on Facebook a picture of, I guess he went that day and got 3 Egg McMuffins from McDonald's. And I don't know, he was saying something like pigging out or something. And I'm like, I started to think where I had eaten. And I'm like, man, I have not been to McDonald's, or I don't eat fast food a ton, but I literally had not been to any. And I looked back, I wrote down a piece of paper because I eat out a lot, regardless whether I'm in town or traveling.
Sure.
We always joke that our kitchen divorced us a long time ago, me and my wife. But I wrote down where I had eaten. And I hadn't eaten at any place that I didn't have some sort of affiliation or passion or appreciation for, different than just a transaction.
Agreed.
And I think a lot of restaurants, if you weren't shown by COVID-19, I was talking to a client 3 days ago that we've worked with now for a year. He was up 8% in April. He was 95% dine-in last April. He does not have dine-in this April. And explain that. It's because he's doing other items, and he's also doing a great marketing, but he's doing a lot of other things.
You got to.
The big thing, though, that I think people miss is that wow factor. Like the money bag was something we've done at restaurants. We did it at my boat dealership. And I actually did it when I was in radio advertising. Our sales manager, Kim Wiest, when we would have these promotions, she would walk through the cubes with a money bag. And she's like, hey, whenever you close a deal on the one-day sale, we always had a one-day sale the week of Thanksgiving because it was a bad week. It's like, whoever wants to buy advertising over the phone, we're going to do a big promotion. And she'd walk by and have a money bag with $1,000 cash in it. And they had 50s and 10s and 100 and 5s. Well, I've done that. We did our boat dealership all the time. Customers, we have big events. They'd walk into our store, and I'd have the cashier walk up. Your chance to reach your money bag. They're like, what are you talking about? The money bag. Reach in, grab something. They pull $50 out. What is this? Have fun. And they spend it with us. But we did this at a burrito restaurant we work with, and we would do it every month. It was it was unannounced. It would be announced the day before, and we'd always pick a terrible day. We'd pick a Monday and say, we're going to be there tomorrow because her big day was Thursday, Friday. And we'd have customers that would come in. I myself did it many times, right? Stand down there with a paper bag, and I'd say, reach to my bag. And customers in line would look at me like I'm crazy. What are you talking about? I'm like, the money bag. What the hell's the money bag? I'm like, you reach here, and you pull some money out. And whatever you pull out, one item is yours. And they would think, I'd look at the manager and go, this guy messing with me? And they'd go, no, he's our marketing guy. So they'd grab money out and they'd get a $5 bill. And they'd be like, oh my gosh, you guys do this all the time? We're like, well, no, you got to be on our email list to find out when. And then that guy would then sign up for the email list. And like half the people that would come in that day had no clue what was happening. And then the other half were only there because they knew they'd walk in, money bag. But I just think a lot of restaurants
cool.
do enough stuff like that. And
I agree.
It just really breaks my marketing heart because I think there's so many opportunities to stand out.
You got to capture attention and imagination and make it fun and entertaining and give them reasons to come back and, well, come back often. So I totally agree with that. Yeah, that's right on. Money bag.
The money bag ties back into what you talked about. One of the things I know you do a lot with is creating the dream team. A staff, I'm guessing, loves to be there and loves the environment. Talk to me about what you see with the opportunity there with staff.
Well, pre-COVID, staffing was the biggest challenge that restaurants were having. You know, there was a massive labor shortage going on, you know, lowest unemployment in history pre-COVID. Now everybody's unemployed. It's just ridiculous how the switch turned. But let's go back to that time. But the biggest mistake restaurant owners or managers were making were they were hiring, not recruiting. And I've always been a big believer in recruiting because you get a different caliber of people. And what I mean by that is there's three types of employees in any business. I don't care if it's a lumberyard, a boat or RV dealership, or a restaurant, right? You got three types of people. You got the C team, which goes without saying. And those are the people that just show up for a paycheck. Half the time they're out back having a smoke. They're unreliable. They don't show up half the time. And they're not there because they care about your business. And then there's the A team at the other end of the spectrum. And those are the people you wish you had 20 more of because, one, they're personable, they're friendly, they get along with everyone, they make friends with the customers, they're experienced, they're polished, they're poised, they clean, you don't have to tell them what to do, they're reliable. I mean, they're amazing people, right? And every business has at least one of those people. And then there's the B team, and Bs are almost just like A's. They've got all the same attributes. The only thing they're missing is maybe they've never worked in a boat or RV dealership before. They've never worked in a restaurant. They don't have the experience. But if they can shadow your A team for a little bit of time and just get up to speed quickly, they have all the rest of the success factors, I call it. So when I started my restaurants 25 years ago, I had a labor shortage. It was hard to get people. They were actually building a huge new hotel at the same time I was building my first restaurant. And this hotel needed to hire hundreds and hundreds of people. So it was really challenging to get people. But I had one A-teamer. And I said to that one A-teamer, I'm like, look, who else do you know who might not be happy in their job right now? Maybe they're treated like an expendable resource. Their boss doesn't lead by example, just, dictate or whatever. They're there, they're making money, but they're not really happy. Well, I'm going to give that person $300 if they come work for us and they do a good job for 3 months. If they last 3 months, I'm going to give them $300 and I'm going to give you $100 for bringing them here. And that was recruiting. And it cost me that was an investment. That was not a cost. So when we're talking pre-COVID during this labor shortage, I heard that the average tenure of a new restaurant employee was probably 3 to 4 months. And every time you hire one of those people and you get them up to speed in the job and then they quit, you fire them, you lose them. It's literally $4,000 in lost time, productivity, wages, and training and getting the new person up to speed after you find that new person. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it was like somewhere between $3,500 and $4,000. And this was a national survey done by a leading restaurant hospitality firm that spoke at one of our industry events. And that's the statistic they provided. So whether it's $3,000, $4,000, $2,000, I don't care. No restaurant can afford for it to cost them $2,000 every time they lose an employee and they got to find another one because you used to see the help wanted ads in the windows, right? It's like there'd be help wanted signs in every business across America pre-COVID. It didn't matter where you were or what business it was, you'd always see these signs. That's hiring, that's not recruiting. So you're getting somebody else's C-teamer. You're getting somebody else's nightmare that's probably bringing down morale in the place, not making friends with your customers, sabotaging the business. That brings to mind, let me give you an example. I'm going to go back in time 25 years ago. I'm starting my first restaurant. I had no restaurant experience, by the way, when I started my first place. Call me crazy. I had a dream. I saw a vision. I saw an opportunity. I made it work. I became super successful running restaurants. But 25 years ago, I'm starting my first place, and I'm probably 3 weeks out from opening the doors. It's a wood-fired.
What did you do before that? Just real quick.
Yeah, I was a ski resort and marketing executive in the ski industry. And I also worked on Wilshire Boulevard for a top advertising agency in Los Angeles for a couple of years restaurants. So yeah, I had a marketing background, and I have an MBA and stuff, and I've been doing business gigs prior to owning restaurants. And I saw an opportunity, I fell into it, I made it happen. But anyway, I'm 3 weeks out from opening, and I'm sourcing a piece of equipment in another state. And I'm driving down the road, and it's lunchtime, and there's a sign there. My place was a wood-fired brick oven pizzeria, my very first restaurant. And I see this sign. It's a sandwich board at the end of this road, and it says wood-fired brick oven pizza now serving. I'm like, terrific. It's lunchtime. That's exactly the kind of place I'm starting. I'm going to go check it out. I'll probably learn something. And this was such a telling experience for me because it literally laid the foundation for half the stuff I'm talking to you about today. So I walk into this place, and there's a host, this teenage kid standing like behind the podium, and he's kind of leaning on it because he's bored, and the place isn't particularly busy. And he's blowing bubble gum, and I'm walking in the entryway, and he's blowing bubbles, and he's kind of leaning. I'm like, that's my first impression. It's like, I don't want any of my customers to see this. Okay, strike one, right? As I get close to this guy, he looks at me and he's like, are you here for lunch? I'm like, well, it's lunchtime. Yeah, I'm here for lunch, right? Next thing I know, totally shocks me. He hands me a menu and he points across the room and he's like, see that table over there? And he's like, it's yours. He didn't even have the courtesy to walk me to the table, tell me something about the place, make a suggestion. No, he's blowing bubbles. Here's your menu. There's your table. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I sat down, and now I got plenty of time to look at the menu, and now I'm ignored. Now I'm getting really pissed off because I sat there, and I swear it was 8 to 10 minutes, and service people are passing me by on the left and the right. No one's making eye contact. No one's recognizing or acknowledging the fact that I'm sitting there. I don't know who my server is. I don't know when they're going to take a drink order. I don't know. I didn't want to stay there forever. I just wanted to get my food and get the hell out of there, right? So finally, 8 to 10 minutes later, the server gets to my table, and there were 10 or 12 specialty pizzas on that menu mat, right? And they all sounded pretty good to me. So I asked the server for her recommendation. You know what she said? In all honesty, first time, she looks me in the eye. She's like, I can't recommend the pizzas here. She's like, I don't eat them. They're too expensive. I went, oh my God. I just about fell out of that booth, you know what I mean? And that's what led to the Sales Stars staff training system I created because, again, it's like impressions count. And unfortunately, negative impressions far outshadow positive ones. And that's why online reviews are so dangerous for these restaurants that aren't doing everything they can to treat their customers with respect and appreciation and hooks and, excitement and all that kind of stuff. So that was such a telling experience for me.
And so you mentioned, you got me thinking when you mentioned that. I got the website pulled up.
Thank you. Yeah.
What are some resources here? Because like that right there is a telling experience. I can't tell you how many times I've been at a restaurant and I've asked that question. Like, oh, I don't know, I've never had it. I'm like, what? Why are you eating everything here?
Absolutely true. Yeah, so up on the menu bar, there's a shop page off to the right, and it'll just show you some of our resources if you click on that. What we're talking about is the staff training system, the waiter in the bow tie there. We call this the Sales Stars server training program, but it's really not just for servers. We have two versions. We have a quick serve, fast casual, and food truck version, and we have the full serve sit-down dining version. And essentially what this does is it builds your dream team staff. It trains them what the customer's looking for. I call it creating a culture of hospitality, family, and fun, where it's all about hospitality. Everyone is treated like family. The staff feel like family. The customers feel like family, and everybody's having fun. And then we train the staff how to sell. And when I talk about the staff, in a full serve restaurant, you've got hosts that greet the customers, like that kid, blowing bubbles. You've got the bussers that clear the tables. You got the servers and the bartenders. This particular program choreographed the service between all those people, and it trained everybody to make suggestions. So you might walk in and there might be a 20-minute wait, and the host takes your name and gives you a beeper, but she's also giving you a suggestion. Oh, you got to try tonight's chef special. It's unbelievable. We just tasted it, and it's the lobster Alfredo Benedict's, blah, 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 and that's incredible. Or we got these special dessert, they just plant a seed that the customer remembers, and chances are it's going to lead to a sale later on in the night. Don't just do the basics of the job and take their name and give them the beeper and then seat them when their table's ready. It's like engage the customer. I call it education, entertainment, and information. Those three things are literally the foundation of the Sales Stars staff training system right there. And then, it's about recognition and rewards. We had a program called Difference Dollars. And every week I mentioned we recognize people either with prizes or whatever, but Difference Dollars was all about somebody who made a difference, whether it was helping out a team member in the restaurant or solving a customer's problem or issue, whatever it was, going above and beyond the basics of the job got you recognized. Maybe I would recognize somebody, a manager might, a fellow team member might, whatever. But every week, 2 people on a Friday and Saturday night. Difference Dollars was getting the team together on those 2 nights, 40, 50 people, at any given time, because it was a 350-seat restaurant, before the doors opened. And now all about what Sally did that made a difference. And I would tell what they did, and then I'd hand Sally a $20 bill and a can of Red Bull. And I'd say, thank you so much for making a difference. And then I'd put her name on the wall with a typed up description in a frame of what she did that made a difference. And then our employee area from floor to ceiling was covered with these difference, whatever these people did that made a difference. And it cost me $40 a week. And boy, if that didn't elevate the team spirit and the morale and the approach and the culture of our business, that we wanted to impact the customer in a positive way. And that led to the staff making friends with the customers and the positive reviews and the camera phones and the social media posts and all. It all starts with the foundation, your team. And that's what we do. We teach people how to build your dream team and how that's going to impact your sales, double and triple your sales, and build. Even more important, it's like turnover in the restaurant business used to be huge, right? And we had a 96% retention rate. We barely had any jobs ever available after we started doing this stuff. It was crazy, but yeah. And then empowerment. We empowered people. We led by example. We empowered them, and we recognized and reward them, and they had our back. They treated the place like they owned it. We taught them the value of what everything costs. Every time somebody's careless and they drop a plate on the floor, that plate might have cost me $5, and now that $5 comes off the profit of the next steak dinner I'm selling or whatever it was. It's like we taught them the value of everything. Because, restaurant employees, unless they're trained to care, they don't care,
Well,
so that's the difference.
I think that's across the board with a lot of employees. It
Right.
all comes to how they're treated, if they feel like they're part of
Right.
something.
Correct.
On my podcast that aired last night, NPTV, Patrick Harder talked about he's put himself, he's got 9 restaurants, and he goes to his employees' graduations and weddings and funerals, and he's involved in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, because
Right.
I want them to see that I care. They're more than just inside that wall. And
Absolutely.
that comes back tenfold, because there's times when 3 people call in sick and I put a text message out, and if I'm the boss that nobody likes and that that it's just a job, nobody's responding. But when I put it out, or my managers, they know how much we all care and they know how it impacts, and you get 50 people reply. So it goes a long way. And the team is big. I'll give you a funny story to end with.
Yes. Okay, cool.
Because you had that area you recognize your employees.
Yes.
I'm at there was an Arby's on the campus of UC, University of Cincinnati. It's a long time ago. This was back I was selling radio like in 2000. And I'm standing there. I look to my right, and there's the employee of the month. And I'm a young guy, and I'm a smart ass and probably say stuff I shouldn't say. And I looked at it, and the manager's waiting on me, taking my order. And they were a client of mine. I had all the Arby's in the area. It was a client. And I looked at the guy and I said, employees aren't doing too good nowadays, huh? What do you mean? I go, not a real good star team. Well, no, we have some great people. I go, you haven't had an employee of the month in 3 years. They had the plaque, and they had like 3 years worth, and then it ended. And he goes, holy shit, man, nobody's ever pointed that out. He goes, that doesn't look good. I'm like, no, I'm just thinking maybe you had no good employees.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and so if you're going to do this, make sure that it's kept up with, because that was something when we had our boat dealership, we did a lot of employee stuff like that, because I saw that the typical employee was paycheck to paycheck. And anytime they got something over and above money, or they got a little bonus, it helped. But the minute you forget about it for 2 weeks, it can go the opposite way on you.
Well, I mentioned the prize closet before, and boy, if you were a new employee in my restaurant and you did something extraordinary, and we caught it, and we heard about it or knew about it, it's like, this kid, he's worked for me for all of 5 minutes. Maybe he's in the dish pit, right? And all of a sudden I go up to him and I'm like, hey, this is incredible. I just heard about what you did. Hey, take a walk with me here. And I open the closet door and I'm like, you see anything you like? It's yours. And he's like, what are you talking about? And there's all this valuable stuff in there. I'm like, yeah. And boy, if that didn't make a huge difference in the loyalty, the productivity, the work ethic, the longevity. I mean, simple things, right? I mean, really simple stuff we're talking about here, but you gotta step outside your comfort zone. You got to step outside those thousands of details and not just run a restaurant. You got to run a business. And that's what I'm talking about, running a business. And that makes all the difference in the world.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time. The best way to get in touch with you is restaurantrockstars.com.
That's right. Or if you have a specific question, I love answering emails as well. They can, the audience can reach me, Roger, R-O-G-E-R, at restaurantrockstars.com. I love talking shop with operators. So if I can help you in any way, reach out to me.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your time, and
Thank you,
I appreciate the gold tips there. A lot of great stuff. If you're an owner or operator and you want to find out more information, you can see restaurantrockstars.com. I was actually perusing through there the other night, so check it out. And I appreciate your time, Roger.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks.
Stay well.
Bye.